Hui Wu is a Ph.D. candidate of the Department of Biology and Biochemistry. His primary advisor is Dr. Stephen Pennings. He's passionate about science and policy. After graduating in spring, he hopes to secure a postdoc to examine the effects of climate change on our coastline, or a position with a government agency addressing marine policies. Allow me to present Hui to tell you a story of a tiny little crab that could save an important habitat along our coast.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick, for the kind introduction. Our world is changing rapidly, and these changes can have negative consequences. However, there are animals that can help mitigate some of these negative effects, and I'm going to talk to you about one of such animals. I'm going to talk to you about little tiny crabs that could. A little crab that could help save an important habitat along our coastline, salt marshes, and therefore protecting millions of jobs, adding to our local economy, and ensuring that we can enjoy our tasty seafood for many years to come. Salt marshes are the dominant habitat along the Atlantic and Gulf Coast. And if you're unfamiliar with what a salt marsh is, all you have to do is take a short drive to Galveston. Right before you cross the bridge onto Galveston Island, look to your left and to your right. The grassy area that's being flooded and drained are salt marshes. And these areas provide many important services. They serve as habitat for migratory birds, which include the critically endangered whooping crane. They help protect our coastline against natural disasters such as hurricanes and tropical storms. They remove carbon dioxide from our atmosphere, they filter pollutant from our runoffs, and they serve as a nursery ground for many recreational and commercially important species. And we eat a lot of these animals. The average American consumes more than 66 pounds of fishery product per year. In fact, in 2013 alone, U.S. fishermen harvested 9.9 billion pounds of fish and shellfish from our coastal water. And that had a port value of $5.5 billion. And the majority of these species, of the species that are harvested, up to 75% of them, ranging from blue crabs to oyster to shrimp to flounder, requires salt marshes or surrounding area for at least some part of the life cycle. So salt marshes are very important for these guys. The value that fishermen are paid at the port doesn't necessarily provide a full picture of the economical value that the marsh provides for us. If you take into account of the flow of money from when gears are bought for boats to until the point where the seafood hit your dinner table, salt marshes add $199 billion in cash flow for our economy and providing more than 1.7 million jobs, ranging from fishermen to process plant worker to the sales associate in the seafood department of your local grocery store. However, all of the services that salt marshes provide are threatened due to global climate change. As global temperature increases, sea level will increase, and it's predicted that by the year 2100, sea level rise will increase by up to 100 centimeters. And this can have drastic and dire effect on salt marshes due to their close proximity to the ocean. Even the slightest increase in sea level can have negative impact. It can increase coastal erosion, it can cause contamination of our aquifers and agricultural soil, and loss of habitat for many species of plant and animals that lives on the marsh. However, the marsh is quite resilient. There are a number of ways that the marsh can cope with sea level rise. One such way is through the formation of tidal creek network. But it's important to point out that there's a benefit threshold on what these creeks can provide for the marsh. But currently, these creeks help deliver water onto the marsh and off the marsh more efficiently. So one way to think of these creeks is to think of them as pipes. So if you have, for example, if you have a small city, the water demand of the population and the amount of waste that the population produces will be small. So your sewer pipe or water pipe can be small. You don't need very many of them. But as your town grows into a large city and the population grows, the water demand and the amount of waste that's being produced will increase. So you're going to need more pipes and a lot bigger pipe to accommodate for that excess demand, that volume that's created. So this is what the creeks are doing for the marsh. As sea level rises, the amount of water flooding the marsh increases, and these creeks help deliver water and help drain the excess volume of water off of the marsh. And there's increasing evidence suggesting that biology is playing an important role in the formation of these tidal creeks, ranging from worms to crab, and this is what I want to focus my talk on today. There's an increasing phenomenon that's occurring along the Atlantic coast. Tidal creeks are growing very rapidly, about 2 meters per year, and they're growing in areas that historically lacked them. And if you're looking at physical processes alone, you can't explain why these creeks are growing at such a rapid rate. So biology may be playing an important role. In fact, if you actually go to one of these creek heads, there are a lot of crabs at the creek head. With one crab species in particular, Sesama reticulatum, the purple marsh crab, exists at very elevated density at the creek head. You can have up to 110 crab per meter square, and they're rare everywhere else. You'll have trouble finding them if you just randomly walk into the marsh. So we believe that these crabs are playing an important role in the formation of these creeks. So we conducted various field and laboratory experiments to examine this. And what we found is that these crabs, the purple marsh crab, are a ferocious feeder of the marsh vegetation. At the creek head, where it exists at high density, these crabs are eating off the vegetation and killing off the vegetation. And the loss of vegetation is allowing the creeks to grow. Because plants hinder creek growth. Plant stems reduce water velocity, plant roots act as increased soil strength. So one way to think of the plant stem is to think of them as an obstacle course for water flow. As water floods the marsh, it hits all of these stems, the water velocity gets reduced. And the roots act as a net holding off the soil together. So with more plants, you have stronger soil and reduced water flow, so you have less creek growth. But the crabs are eating all of this, and it's allowing the creeks to grow. And this is not bad for the marsh. I just want to point that out. In addition, these crabs are a heavy burrower. The area behind the marsh looks like Swiss cheese because there are so many burrows. What happens when they burrow is that they turn compacted soil into loose mound of soil that are deposited at the marsh surface. And this loose amount of soil could be washed away with the incoming or outgoing tide. You can think of these crabs as nature's tiny little rototillers. They can loosen the top 25 centimeters of the marsh up to 6 times per year. So this is a lot of soil that's being loosened that could be washed away, adding to our explanation of why these creeks are growing so fast. So when you have high density of crabs at the creek head, they're eating off all the vegetation. That in turn increases water velocity and increase the amount of water soil being removed. So you have faster creek growth. But when the crabs are removed from the creek head, we actually saw 43% more vegetation at the creek head. So with more plants to baffle water flow and to increase soil strength, we saw a 35% reduction in creek growth rate. So as sea level rises, the volume of water flooding the marsh increases. And without a network of creeks to accommodate for this excessive in volume of water, the most likely result that's going to happen for the marsh is that there will be a lot of ponding and the marsh will drown and will lose that area. So the crabs, by facilitating the formation of these creeks, they're allowing the marsh to drain more they're allowing water to be delivered more efficiently and drain off more efficiently. And so by doing so, they're increasing the resilience of the marsh. So these tiny little crabs, they're actually saving a very important habitat along our coastline, and they're protecting millions of jobs and livelihoods of millions of people. And more importantly, they'll be allowing you to enjoy your seafood in the near future. Thank you.